This episode of the Model 3 Owners Club podcast is brought to you by Duliban Insurance. If you live in Ontario, Canada, and are looking for the best price and coverage on your Tesla, give Duliban a call at 1-855-385-4226 or visit our website at dulibaninsurance.com/Tesla. Hey everyone, it is time for the Model 3 Owners Club podcast for March 7th, 2019. I am your host, Trevor Page. I am joined by three co-hosts this evening. I have Mr. Ian Pavelko, Eric Camacho, and Raj from the Tesla Raj channel. Thanks for joining us, guys. How you been?
Great.
We're doing it, man. All good.
Well, you know, Tesla has been absolutely on fire this week with all kinds of news, and we want to jump in because Raj has a limited amount of time tonight. So I think we want to start with the developments of Tesla's version 3 of the Supercharger announcement, and Raj was very fortunate to have been able to attend it last night. So why don't you just jump in real quickly and just give us a quick rundown of actually what transpired?
Yeah, definitely. I was very lucky to be there last night and get a kind of firsthand look and feel and an experience of V3. So they have a test site in Fremont, kind of in a back office area in a parking lot that's not really open to the public. I was lucky to kind of be someone's plus one that formally got an invite. It was a very intimate crowd. I would say about 50 invites is what I heard went out. And so, people drove up, showed the invite, their VIN numbers were checked. All of these people who were invited were also pushed the latest software, 2019.7.11. And so that obviously makes sure and enables them to be able to do the V3 supercharging. And there were about 4 V3 superchargers and 1 V2, just for comparison. People were coming in with less than 100 miles state of charge, getting in, experiencing the V3 supercharging experience, getting up to about 80%, and then kind of moving over to either a destination charger or something they had nearby, just so people were getting in and out. Food and drinks were provided. Tesla employees were there answering questions, being super amazing as they always are. And it was an overall really good and fun experience. People were genuinely excited. I mean, as you guys know, to see charging speeds doubled, cut in half, that's a huge accomplishment. So it was very exciting.
Yeah. I watched your video, and thanks for doing that. By the way, for viewers and listeners, I will put a link in the video description so you can watch Raj's video that he did. A couple things. I mean, obviously they didn't show us the cabinets. There's been a lot of talk about the changeover of the cabinets. We'll get into that a little bit. The chargers themselves, which are the U-shaped white cabinets. By the way, when I say cabinets, I'm talking about the cabinets in the back that actually contain the chargers themselves, which is the electronics. The part that you plug into your car, that's pretty much, there's not a lot of stuff in there. But you showed a comparison between the V2 charger and the V3 charger, and it looks like the V3, looks like they're reintroducing the liquid-cooled cables again. That would account, of course, for them to be thinner. Did you have a chance to put your hand on it? Felt if it warmer or cool?
Yeah, so it was still warm to the touch. So that was one thing I wanted to see, does the liquid cooling really keep the cable, right, cold or cool to the touch? So it was still warm, but it wasn't I wouldn't say it was hot. So it was warm. It was definitely what I liked about it. It was a lot more flexible. So it was very easy. If you think about the V2s today, they're a little chunky. They're a little bit harder to maneuver. Yeah. This one was a lot easier to move and maneuver. They really only cut it by maybe, I would say, half an inch. I did a very unscientific test of my finger length. But yeah, it's a small adjustment, but it actually, I felt it easier to maneuver.
Very cool. I just want to bring up a couple of quick charts that one of our Tesla followers on Twitter, he goes by the name of Privateur. I hope I pronounced that correctly. He actually generated 2 charts because I guess he was down there. And this first chart shows the state of charge over time, or actually in percentage as opposed to peak. And if you look at the chart, now I know you guys can't see it here, but we'll put it in post so you guys can. It looked like the new V3 supercharger, at least in this version of it on the cars, is really geared for between 8 and about 18 or 19%, somewhere in there. And then it tapers off very quickly. So the way I kind of read this, I'll put the chart away here for a second. You guys can review it later. But the one thing that my kind of takeaway from that particular chart is, how can I put this? It seems to be, at least at this point, you get the higher rate of charge if you push your car a little further. So instead of charging at 30%, whatever, if you really go balls out and you're really, going long distance and stuff, you get that initial charge a little bit lower. And then he did another chart, which I'll bring up here, and it shows the charge time up to 90% over time. And the net takeaway from this is that if you do go to about 90%, it shaves approximately 20 minutes off of your charge time. So yeah, in a lot of ways, you're cutting it in half. The other part, too, that Tesla did say on their blog post, and of course I'll put it down in the link in the video description if you guys want to read the blog post and you happen to miss it, that they are not upgrading all of the Supercharger sites with this V3 hardware. They are going to leave things as it is right now with V2. Any newer ones after, I think, what did they say? I think it was about, Elon just put out a tweet today. I think he was saying that it was going to be in beta for about 3 or 4 months. And then further stations, as they get approved, will come online. So we really don't know how many of these stations are actually going to get to V3. I would suspect that any that are actually in the permitting stage right now, or actually started building, they're not going to get it, obviously. So it remains to be seen. But one of the things they did say is that they are going to get around to unlocking more kilowatts on the existing sites. I think the number given was about 143. So the net effect, is that, for those of us who have S's and X's, that our charging time will certainly decrease as well. However, one of the other benefits of the V3, of course, once we get the chance to use those, and I'm talking about S and X people, is that we won't have to do the load sharing thing anymore, which is the typical skip a cabinet. So, even though our cars might be able to get 143, we won't run into those situations where I have to skip a cabinet because I'm only going to get 50% or whatever the case may be. So long term, I think this is a really great move on their part. Was there anything else that you noticed there that maybe you didn't put in the video or anything like that?
I think I put everything in. One of the things that I wanted to also call out too, that I briefly mentioned and I didn't hear you bring up this, is that when you actually are navigating to a V3 charger, and your navigation knows that, and so it starts to precondition your battery. So essentially, and a lot of people were kind of asking this, well, how are they saving, the time and charge? A lot of that is done is because today, when you come into a supercharger, your battery is not at an ideal state to accept that kind of throughput of juice, and so now it's getting it to that perfect, ideal, dialed-in temperature that as soon as you plug in, ramps thing all the way up to to that 1,000 miles per hour. And I think what the graphs that you brought up that Private Air shared line up to what I was seeing. It was very kind of hard because the charger that we were at, I think there was something maybe a little faulty, and obviously that goes to the kind of beta testing. But some of the other ones that I was able to kind of poke my head in and kind of see a little bit of some multiple time stamps of what the state of charge was and kind of comparing it to the chart, it's fairly accurate to what we saw. So, I saw cars at 93, 95 mile state of charge, still at a 900 plus mile per hour charge. And then as you got up to the, God, what was the number at? But then you started to see it taper kind of as you reached the 40, 50%.
I think it was. Yeah. Elon did clarify in a further tweet that there will be a software update pushed out to the rest of the cars that will enable this preheating thing until you get to your destination. Because obviously for us that live in a little bit colder climate, we notice it a lot more. If you start off in the morning, you go to a supercharge, your battery's really cold, and it's, especially for newbies who are not used to it, they go to plug in and like, why am I only getting like 30 kilowatt out of this thing? It's ridiculous, right? Probably not a problem in California or Florida all that much, but for us, that makes a big difference.
I think that's super smart, right? That goes down to the root of like Tesla's core, right? Using the software and using their technology to make and dial in and make these experiences better. Software push to enable something like that. crazy, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. And of course, going forward, it's part of this new cell chemistry. It's part of the fatter wires they put in the Model 3. I mean, we've been talking about this on the podcast for some time because we get viewer questions and people are asking, is the Model 3 ready for V3? And I'm like, you know what? Tesla doesn't design these things in like 3 days and figure, let's just do V3. This has been in the plan for a long time. The Model 3 has been ready for that. And, of course, by extension of that, the Model Y or any future cars, Roadster, the semi-truck. I think some of this stuff has actually come, largely it was developed in concert with the Model 3 and, of course, the semi-truck. So any cars coming in the future will certainly get that, especially if they move to the new chemistry, i.e., the 2170 cell. So eventually when they get around to doing a refresh on the S and X, you can bet that those cars will certainly support, Supercharger V3.
Absolutely.
Guys, you got anything else you want to throw in on this? Any other observations? Ian, did you see anything that you thought was cool?
Yeah, we've been getting quite a few questions coming down the pipe about durability of the pack. A lot of people are freaking out. It's like, oh my God, we're putting 250 kilowatts into the battery. What's it going to do? Did any of the Tesla staff speak to that, like about durability and so on?
No, they didn't. But one thing, and actually I was about to say this, and this was a good segue, is, I think that this is really good. Is that high amperage into your battery the best? No, probably not. But I think that goes to that the superchargers are not really built for constantly charging off of them, right? They're really supposed to be a transit mechanism, right? That this is what you use when you're traveling, right? So I'm taking a long road trip. Obviously, I need places to charge, but it goes down to the main core principle of, electric vehicle is that you charge at home, right? And so that, charging at home is that convenience. The problem that I would say that Tesla kind of made a mistake with is, the giving out so many unlimited supercharging that, especially here in the Bay Area, because it's so heavily EV, people are using superchargers like that's their daily charge.
Yeah.
So you'll go to a supercharger, they're full, people are sitting in there reading their magazines, and it's like, that was what we don't want to do, right? The whole point of like sitting there and wasting time. I don't want to do that. I'll only do that if I'm traveling a long distance. I'll use that, and now my time is reduced. But, yes, if you're constantly doing that, it's probably going to damage your battery. And so, I think that Tesla's going to be really creative about where they place these V3s and really put them in more remote locations, more on these routes that people are taking longer distance to really help out.
Agreed, 100%. This is not going to be an urban thing.
Right.
The one thing I will say just from studying the graphs is it looks like they're exploiting the bottom 30% more than anything else, because when you look from 30 to 90, the climb is kind of a little closer to V2. It's the 0 to 30, which is mind-blowing. And I'm thinking that might have been underexploited previously. And it's probably two things. Not only, number one, there's obviously the huge amount of current available in the new machine, but I think the preconditioning, you hit the nail on the head. The fact that the car comes in hot and ready to go, it's the combination of those two things. So the fact that it's still tapering, I mean, if the thing was like blowing 250 kilowatts straight up to 90%, I'd be, you know what? You're going to melt your battery at some point.
Exactly.
This is not good.
Exactly.
But the fact that it tapers so gradually and gracefully like it used to, I personally don't have a fear. And like I told someone today, it's like, look, there's an 8-year warranty in the battery. If you think they're going to go hog wild charging the crap out of these things when they have to honor the warranty on a couple 100,000 cars, like no, this has been R&D'd to death. I'm convinced.
Yeah, no. I was just about to say the same thing. They're not about to do that because they're on the hook for any kind of warranty issue.
Oh yeah.
And after that 70%, or I mean, after that 30%, I was still seeing like 700 miles per hour. So it was a fairly decent charge. And I think it's that quick charge, like in that small amount of time, they were quoting about, 75 miles in a 5 to 10 minute window. And I mean, that's 75 miles is a decent amount of range to get to, so that's.
I think what you're going to see is that right now the mentality is, how fast does this thing get me to 90%? But we all know that when we do road trips, the computer really is geared to take you to the next supercharging stop rather than let's get you to 90% so you don't have to worry about charging. So we're going to see these supercharging stops. You're basically not going to have a chance to go pee and have a coffee.
There was actually a really good a picture that I saw someone posted on Twitter that was like, here are the 4 things that you do when you stop at a supercharger. Now you can only pick 2. So that was really funny.
I mean, the reality is, like, if you're charging on a level 1, let's say you're looking at a Model 3 long range like I have. So you're charging on a level 1 charger. You're getting 5 miles of range an hour. You're getting 15 miles of range a minute for the first 75 miles on a V3 supercharger. Like, it's insane the amount of time you're saving.
Yeah.
And to Trevor's point, I was going to say the exact same thing. Like, yeah, when you're planning on a trip, if the car's computer says, okay, you're going to go to the supercharger and charge for 40 minutes, well, you may actually find those times even improve as V3 becomes more mainstream in Q2 and beyond, because you might find that a trip that maybe like Ian's last trip when he went from Florida back home to Montreal, a trip that took him driving time and charging about 30 hours, he might be able to cut that down to like 24 hours, 25 hours, simply because he's saving time on charging.
I am dying to test that theory.
And I think one of the things that, and I think that this is what they were doing with V2, and that all the placements of the V2 superchargers are there's obviously a strategy behind it, right? What's around there? What are the businesses? Are they places that customers will take a little bit longer? So there's a Lazy Dog restaurant by my house, and there's like, I would say maybe 20 urban superchargers placed there. But, Lazy Dog, it's a restaurant. You walk in. So it's going to take you at least, 40 to 45 minutes to eat there, in which case you're going to get almost a full charge. And so, like, what I learned is that there's a lot of that thought process on that. And now with this, they can probably remove some of that and put them in more of these, like I said, remote locations where you don't have that because you don't really need it because the charging speed is so fast. Now, one other thing is that V3, you will get a pop-up on the screen. It is on one of the, I think, pictures that I posted that says you're on a high-capacity charger. Charge is limited to 80%. So the V3 will only allow you to charge to 80% before it stops.
That's interesting.
So it will not allow you to get to 100% at this moment in time of what I saw.
Right. Well, I think it's also good because you do want to get people to switch out as quickly as possible. So as more and more cars hit the market, you want to be able to at least get them, like you said, in California specifically, where a lot of people are EV owners, you want to get them in and out as fast as possible.
Yeah.
They might have to start another revenue stream, idle fees.
Well, the other advantage too is that, to Raj's point, like as more of these stations maybe switch from a V3, or at least where there is a supercharger now, maybe goes to something a little bit different, the V2s are going to have an increase of about 18% once they go to 145 kilowatt output. So even that, for most people who are dining at a restaurant or going to a shopping center or whatever it is, they're going to find even their charging times decrease rather by about 18% in total charge time, which for them is significant savings as well.
Raj, just a question for you, and I know it's probably off the wall a little bit. Did anybody ask about the snake charger? Like, what's going on?
No, actually, no, but somebody should have.
I would have.
They were pretty, they were, and I got to get good at this too. I think, you get so like caught up in the event that, I was like filming and taking pictures and trying to do all my stuff. And, and you think about it, right? It was a true good experience of like, you're there to charge. And then after the charge, I mean, you're asking questions while you're charging. Then after you're charged, they're like, okay, move along, go and
bye
over there. And then it's kind of like misty and rainy. So you were like, okay, I guess just got to go. And so it was very a short period of time. And I think that to put in perspective, I'm like, man, I wish I had gotten a picture of this, or I wish I'd asked this question, or I wish I had looked at my social media to see what people are posting, because I caught up with everything after I got home.
I know exactly how you feel. I'm guilty of the same thing. You get so wrapped up in a moment and then it's only after the fact you go, oh, what was I thinking? I should have did this, this, and this.
Exactly.
Well, that's
like
an
simple
awesome
question on the S and X. I forgot.
Yeah. Well, there's always next time, I guess.
Yes.
Well, thank you very much for that report. We really appreciate you.
Yes, thank you.
Such short notice
to
do this because, of course, the excitement been over this whole thing because, when Elon said we're going to do this demo and it was literally 2 days before, everybody's like, well, is it going to be live stream? What's going on? Where's my invite? It's like, can I just drop in?
That's why I was like, I will live stream it. I think I commented on one of your posts and I was like, if you guys want to see it, tune in. I will live stream it while I'm there. And I think I've learned that Twitter live stream is very beneficial and people love it, so I've been using it. I know I can live stream on YouTube, but I've heard horror stories, so stick with Twitter.
I've done them all. The Twitter one seems to work, but take your pick, whatever your poison is at that particular time.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much for that. Do you want to stay for a little bit and maybe talk about the Model Y situation? Because,
Sure.
Elon took to Twitter. Well, that's our next subject, of course. So let's talk about the Model Y reveal, because Elon took to Twitter and announced that next Thursday, on March 14th, will be the Model Y reveal, and it'll be at the Hawthorne Design Studio, as they usually do. Of course, there's been a lot of speculation, of course, as to when they're actually going to show this car. Or when, and not only that, but where. And I've always said, well, they always do them at Hawthorne because that's the only place they can maintain secrecy.
Yeah.
Of course, the big thing that everybody's wondering about right now is like, where's my invite? I got enough referrals to go. What's going on? Like, you're cutting a little short there, Elon.
A little.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's been very frustrating.
Looking at the Supercharger invite, I mean, I would hope that it's not, the morning of or like the day before. I think, Trev, you said you already booked tickets?
Yeah, I spent my money, man. I'm going with
Just
her.
Yeah, I mean,
Talk about a leap of faith.
you could pull a me and just, hang around there and get lucky, and I'm sure people will be like, this man definitely needs to be in here.
We'll see. I don't want to pull one of those "do you know who I am" type of things. But if somebody happens to be there, something might happen. But yes, you're right. I did book my flights and my hotel on the off chance. Listen, the fact is that because some of us have to travel such a long distance, whenever these things kind of break, it takes a long time, and of course prices go through the roof. So I figured, you know what?
Yeah.
I'll just get it in preparation because I don't want to do anything last minute. So. Everybody wants to know, and now Elon, of course, took to Twitter and kind of described what the Model Y is going to be. We kind of know that, and by extension, we've talked about this before. If you look at the S and the X, it's about 10% larger, and on account of an SUV, has to be kind of like that. So I want to hear from you guys some speculation. Let's speculate here. We don't tend to do that too much when it comes to new cars, because the last thing you want to do is set your expectations too high. But I want to hear from you guys what you think Model 3 is going to be like. Now, Elon said 10% larger. It's going to have a family resemblance. No Falcon wing doors. And that was about it. Yeah, the range is going to be a little less on account of it being bigger and heavier. So
Right.
I'm going to let it go to you guys. I want you guys to pitch in here and tell me what you think. I have my own ideas, but I want to hear from you guys.
Well, I think it'll be what we define as a compact SUV. I think it'll have a lot of the contour of the Model X, but on a smaller scale, just based on aerodynamics. I would imagine the interior will be taller, so you have longer cargo. I would imagine that the trunk might be very similar to that of a hatchback sort of opening. More of the Model S, where the glass might be attached to the back than it is the Model 3. Other than that, you're probably going to find a little bit more cargo in the front and the trunk. The passenger cabin might be a little bit more spread out. So for those that sit in the back, you might find more legroom than you find in the Model 3. But other than that, I think the dash might be very similar. The front cargo storage might be very similar.
Come on now.
Yeah, but I think pretty much that's how it's going to look.
Ian, any thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with exactly everything Eric started with. I would add that, the interior I think is going to be extraordinarily the same. I would be very shocked if there was any difference in the front passenger compartment. I think it's going to look close to identical to Model 3. I'm very curious to see how the rear seating arrangement is going to go. Are we going to see just a 2-row? Are they going to go for a 3-row, maybe with kind of like a little baby? No, I see Raj shaking his head. No, you don't think so?
No, five-seater probably is where the Max are going to get out of that.
5-seater is a given. We know that. There has been some, leaks. I think Fred over at Electric had gotten a report that Tesla had basically said, oh, that's old information, that did say it was going to have 3 rows of seating. Personally, I would like to see that, but knowing how cramped the 3rd row is in a Model X, because I own one.
Just going to say that, yep.
It's going to be really tight, and a Model X is a really big car, so if you're going to have a Model 3 that's stretched a little bit, I don't really see it happening. Raj, what about you?
So it was funny because I sat in an X maybe more than a year ago, probably 2 years ago. I sat in an X, and it was a 6-seater. So it had the passageway in the middle, and I remember sitting in the back, in the back seats. I was like, I need to feel how this fits, because Elon had full-size adults coming out of there. So I sat back there, and I was like, oh, this is not bad. Recently, I had someone buy an X and actually return it because they were not impressed with the third row. They said they couldn't get in there. So I said, scratched my head. That's weird. And so I was just at the Santana Row, San Jose. It was a Supercharger event, and went there, and they had an X, and I was like, I got to get back in here. And it was a 7-seater. I could not get my legs in there on the third row. It was just mind blowing. I said, there's no way. Like, the third row is really meant for like a 10-year-old. Like, that is kids seating back there. An adult, I mean, it hurts. It hurts and so that's when I was like, there's no way they're doing a third row on the Model Y, being a smaller car. I also feel that the Model Y will literally look like a beefier Model 3. Like, I think exterior and interior are going to look exactly the same. The doors, the interior, everything's going to look the same.
Door handles, it'll all be the same.
Yeah, door handles, all the same, because I went for the factory tour, and one of the big highlights that they highlighted was like, oh yeah, look, the S and the X run on the same body and on the same line. And I thought, to streamline stuff, why not have the 3 and the Y do the same thing as well? And then the other part that I was going to say is the whole 10%. So when he tweeted the 10%, I kind of felt a little bit sad because I was not expecting, and I started thinking of it as a 10% all around. But here's something to think about. What if it's 10% everywhere, right? So now you take the total length of the car, 10%. You take the total height of the car, 10%. You take your legroom, 10%. So yes, everything increases by 10% instead of the entire car by 10%. I started thinking about it that way, and then I said, okay, that makes sense. And one thing that I would be really excited to see is that the Model 3 sits very low. We all know that. And you know, a lot of people have stated, you know, there's that gap underneath your thigh between the seats, right? There's like that wedge. And, you know, obviously with the V2 seats, they beefed that up a little bit better. And I've had people say, you know, I'm going to wait for the Y because I want a little bit more of height. I want that full support on my thighs. I want to be able to swing my legs out and get down a little bit, just give that overall height. And that's what I'd be most excited to see on the Y, because that's going to lift that up.
I agree with you. I do want to point out, it's funny because you mentioned about the 10% thing. Remember when the Model 3 was first, well, not really announced, but Elon started talking about it. He says, oh, it's going to be about 20% smaller than a Model S. Well, as it turns out, it's not actually 20%. It's 20% by volume,
right?
But not in physical dimensions. So it could go both ways, because as we know on Twitter, when Elon puts something out, he doesn't elaborate all that much. So it's well, what is it? Is it 10% in size or by volume? So you have to kind of, in a lot of ways, I think he thinks more like an engineer than he does like a regular person. So we'll see. Yeah. I want to put something out there. What do you guys think? I mean, based on how they do the S and the X3, and of course what the Model Y is going to look like, any thoughts? And I personally, as an owner of a Model X, I hope this makes it the windshield.
Ooh, it is a costly piece. I don't know.
Well, let me put it to you this ways. Sorry to interrupt. Let me put it to you this ways. If they are going to do a lift back on the Model Y like they did on the Model S, we lose the panoramic glass on the back.
True.
Right.
Put it on the front like they did on the Model X.
I think you are on the right track, Trevor. I think the rear hatch is going to be a regular SUV hatch and not a hatchback latch. But I think they will extend the front glass. I think the feedback on owners who own the Model X love that glass.
Oh, best feature by far.
As opposed to like the Falcon Wing doors, which the reviews are very mixed. So you would tend to lean on what customers really like. I think it will be costly. But it won't be as big as Model X. I think they'll extend it a little bit, but not to go too crazy, because as we know, the Model X has the funny visors, and hopefully they've kind of figured that technology out.
Yeah. It may be a cross sort of a solution between what the Model S roof is now and what the Model X has, because you're not going to have a Falcon Wing doors. If you're going to have traditional doors like you do in the Model 3, you could very well have almost what looks like, even though it won't actually be, almost a continual glass roof from front to back, but with obviously some gaps for the size of the glass. But that could be a little bit different there, where they could still do more of an extended glass in the front, somehow meet it in the roof somewhere where the Model S is like, and then actually have it continue towards the back like the Model 3 is now. So it could be some hybrid between those two.
Yeah, right now on the Model 3, you have that middle bar realistically just for those two, the dome lights. right? And so the dome lights could actually go behind the rear seats, right between where the panoramic glass ends and where the hatch opens. Like that's a bar right there. It could shine
that's
down.
The way the Model
that
X
could
is,
work.
yeah. Well, either way, Tesla's going to put some. They're going to sprinkle some special Tesla pixie dust on this thing to make it unique in some way. They're not just going to say, "Well, here's an SUV." It's. There's got to be something else. Speaking of which, too, because I know a lot of people online have been discussing the fact, including ourselves, as to why the reveal invites haven't gone out yet. This car is too important for them personally. I think for them to do an online review only. They got to do something in person. The fact that he said it's going to be at the design studio tells me that there's a physical presence of some form. So, like I said, they're cutting it a little short, and Tesla tends to do that sometimes. On other reveals, it's been as little as a week, but in most cases, it's been about 2 weeks. I kind of went back over time. The Model 3 was almost a month when they sent out the invites. So I'm hoping that maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow, somehow we'll get the invites. I hope it happens, but.
Man, I'm going to be sitting in a hotel 10 minutes away, and if I don't have an invite that night, I'm going to be so depressed.
That's right, because you happen to be down there on business.
Yeah, I'm in the LA region the entire week. It just by freak of nature happened. My course ends. My last course is on the Thursday afternoon, so it's like, hello, come on, guys.
Either way, we're going to get together and do something while I'm down there anyway. So,
Hell yeah.
Raj, you're more than welcome to join in and stuff. We'll have some details a little bit later when we get on. Let's take a break here for a moment, and we'll be right back. FineLab has a line of protective coatings that were engineered to protect your Tesla's paint, leather, carpet, plastic, and wheels, effectively blocking all those UV rays and environmental factors before they ever get to ruin your brand new baby. FineLab offers a complete line of car care products and ceramic coatings for both the do-it-yourselfer and professional detailers. Did we mention we also have the world's first self-healing coating? Check us out at finelab.com. That's spelled FEYNLAB. To see the science behind the self-healing, check out our product catalog and click Contact Us for a free quote from a certified installer in your area. FineLab and Tesla. We were meant for each other. All right, well, welcome back, everyone. We're going to talk about something that just came about here by Clean Technica. I'll put a link in the video and podcast description as usual, that VIN registrations are now indicating that the right-hand drive Model 3 is going to be coming soon. Now, again, I want to remind people that VIN registration does not necessarily mean cars have started production, but they intend to. So, for those of you that are in the European countries and, of course, Asia and in Australia, you should be seeing those cars probably within the next 2 to 3 months, I would hope, anyways. Again, you have to remember that shipping of these cars takes some time, of course, built in California. Got to put them on the ships, got to take them up across the seas. So there's about a month. So when they start taking orders, if I remember correctly with Europe, it was took about a month for production to start because they started taking orders in December. January was largely earmarked for Europe. They put them on the ship, took about 3 weeks or so, and then delivery started in early February. So it's looking promising for that car. Got to open up some more markets. I don't know where the China situation is. Of course, we had a report that China had suspended Model 3 imports for literally just a handful of hours because of some weird paperwork. It was a non-story, but, kind of made the rounds a little bit. Any thoughts on this?
Yeah, go Britain.
Tesla.
I mean, Scotland, England, obviously everybody, maybe, are they going to go to Japan? Like, what's the story with, I haven't heard much word about Model 3 shipments to Japan, if there's any plan to do anything there at all. Has that really come up on the radar anywhere?
Well, they did say Asia Pacific, so of course that includes all of those island nations as well that have them. Now, does Tesla
which quite a few of those are right-hand drive as well, yeah.
Does Tesla even have a store in Japan or not? Do we even know?
I'm kind of amazed that none of the three of us do.
We are not experts at this.
No.
I need to look this up. I'm going to Google this.
Okay.
Tesla stores in Japan. Uh-oh. It wants me to log out of my account. Why are you asking me to log in?
Are you breaking things?
Oh my God! Yeah, they do. They do.
Yeah, I thought so. I'm sure I've seen pictures of Model S and Model X there. I just didn't know if how they were imported or what the network was, but they must. But I haven't seen a Japanese buzz over Model 3. It seems like every nation on Earth.
I'm seeing 4 locations. Unfortunately, I can't read Japanese, but I'm showing 4 locations.
Okay. So at some
There
point,
you
I'm
go.
sure there's
There's
be
your
some
answer.
there. Yeah, cool.
Should have been more prepared for that one, but there you go. Yeah, so that's coming soon. We're very excited about that. Now, we're going to take a little time here, and we're going to talk about the big elephant in the room because it's been making the rounds on the internet, of course, since the advent
I'm
of
sorry
all
to
these...
interrupt. There's two in Tokyo. There's one in Kyoto and one in Nagoya.
Oh, very good. Thank you.
Those are the 4 stores in Japan. You're welcome. I can read Japanese.
Okay. All right.
That's not true. I can't.
So getting back to what I was saying, we're going to address the elephant in the room because it's been all over the internet, of course, over the last week since all the changes to autopilot. So we're going to talk about autopilot and all these pricing changes and everything that's kind of gone down a little bit. Now, I'll be completely and utterly honest with you. I don't have much of an opinion on that. I mean, I know how it's affected me. Because I jumped on board with full self-driving as soon as the price got adjusted in my account. However, I jumped too soon. Turns out that, and I contacted Tesla about the situation, and they said, please let people know not to jump in too soon because we're still updating the back end. And of course, I got a little bit caught in that quagmire. So as it turns out, I am going to get a partial refund because I overpaid. My full self-driving, because I had not bought it with the car, I fell under the penalty. So you had to pay an extra, whatever it was. So my account, it was showing $6,600 Canadian for the longest time. That's $5,000 US. When the announcement came out, because I was waiting for this clarification, it showed up on March 1st. Elon had posted the Tesla team, I should say, posted this. And I woke up and watched the DM1 mission. I happened to log into my account when I saw the blog post, and there it was. The price had dropped to $4,000 Canadian. So I thought, it's a better deal. And, we've said this before with Tesla giveth, sometimes they can taketh. So I figured I might as well jump in on this because I know it involves, the autopilot computer. And I felt that after some reflection, for me, full self-driving, when it does get closer and closer and be ready, as a resale value, I see it more like autopilot. People want autopilot. So I see this as a future thing. It might be an early adopter thing. So that's why I jumped in. But as it turns out, because the blog post had come out, when I contacted Tesla, they said, yeah, it looks like you overpaid because there was an adjustment in your account, but it wasn't the actual final price. So I'm still waiting on that. Now, having said that, that's how it affected me. Now, other people, of course, are in different situations. You have people that ponied up right at the beginning. They bought enhanced autopilot. They bought the full self-driving. They paid a lot of money. And at the end of the day, when you look at the changes that Tesla's made on this situation, they're getting bupkis. They're not getting any refunds. They're not getting any adjustment and stuff. So I really feel for those people. It shouldn't be like that. It's been all over the internet, of course. Michael Brodner has made his piece about, well, not his piece, but he's certainly done a video on this thing. Mark Benton is fighting like a champion to try and get this rectified because, of course, he's on board with this. So I want to know how you guys feel about the situation because, and I don't have the chart in front of me right now, but Troy Tesla, who's on the forum, of course, and follows us, actually made a beautiful infographic that actually kind of explains all the machinations and the permutations of these changes. But the way I look at it, if we need a flow chart to figure out what the heck we're paying, there's something definitely broken with the system. So, all right, guys, chime in. I want your opinions.
So, I'll start first. If you follow the show enough and you follow us on social media, you'll probably notice that I've been very quiet on the subject ever since it started coming out, because even now I was trying to make headway with what was happening. And a lot of the changes, certainly there was a lot of blowback from people who, whether you're an ardent supporter of Tesla and its mission, or if you're someone who's sort of watching from the sidelines and seeing what's happening, go, well, that seems like you're screwing some people. I, for one, am not someone who is as disappointed or upset with the changes. The thing I would say that is sort of difficult to understand is just how many permutations there's been since the announcement. You know, the sort of the step backs, the corrections, the adjustments, the clarifications, and I think that initial confusion sort of threw some people by the wayside. But that being said, if I look now, if I were to buy a Model 3 today, the total package for autopilot, which is no longer enhanced autopilot, it's just autopilot, and full self-driving, the collective amount is $8,000.
Yeah.
Now, I paid for enhanced autopilot when I bought my car last year, $5,000 just for EAP. If I elected to add the FSD features, that would cost me at the time $3,000. So the total for the two when I bought my car in 2018 would have been $8,000 US. It's the exact same price today for the two. But what's different today in terms of the software is we're seeing some of the features that EAP owners have, which I am among the very many that do. Some of those features are now exclusive to FSD today for those who would buy a car today. So those who are grandfathered in have these awesome benefits. The trouble is that there are a lot of people who go, but hold on a second. I was among the very first who bought ABC. I feel like I'm overpaying for what people are going to be able to get today for similar features. And there is an argument to be made that there should be some resolution made. Now, I don't know what that is. I'm not going to sit here in any way and suggest what that restitution is, whether it's financial, whether it's certain benefits. There are many of us who, because we were early adopters of Tesla vehicles, we were able to get into the referral program, and we got a lot of perks from the referral program. Our friend Earl, who is Frunk Puppy on Twitter, has been very compassionate with those who are sort of raising the flag going, hey, what about me? But he's quick to say, well, hold on, though. Think about the things that you've been a benefactor of receiving over the course of the time you've owned your car that are not options anymore today. People cannot get their picture to launch in space. They can't get the option to get a Roadster. There's all these different incentives now that are sort of gone by the wayside. So it is very complicated, and I understand both sides of this very, very precarious conversation we're having. And I hope that if you're listening to the show or you're watching this on YouTube, that you don't feel slighted in any way by us. We understand what you're talking about. We know where you're coming from. As Trevor just pointed out, he was one of those that says, sign me up. I'm going to get this right now while I can. And I've sort of have thought about maybe pulling the trigger on FSD myself, just because it is only for me $2,000 now versus paying $5,000. So in essence, I'd be saving $1,000 versus getting it a year ago. But it's going to be on a case-by-case basis. Mark Benton has brought some very good points up on Twitter.
Absolutely.
So there's a lot to be said. It is, I think, still something that Tesla needs to figure out. They may very well be taking their time trying to look at all the different feedback on social media, maybe having those who are contacting them by phone to customer support and trying to figure out what would be the best thing here. They're not going to be able to appease everybody. There's going to be some people who still feel like they weren't judged fairly and given the right opportunities to resolve it. But the fact of the matter is, something should be done. But what that is, it's going to be very difficult to say.
I agree with you. Ian, before you put in your opinion, I want to bring up a tweet, and I think a lot of people missed this. This is something that Elon said. Responding to someone on Twitter named Raul said, I know being an early adopter comes with risks, but this one does not make any sense. Having to pay $8,000 for EAP and FSD when I helped make the product better by sharing all my data versus $5,000 for FSD now seems unfair. And Elon responded, and I think a lot of people missed this tweet. We're trying to make EVs and autonomy more affordable over time. This is the right thing to do. However, we cannot also retroactively make early buyers whole without killing the company.
I think you retweeted that when you saw that.
I did, because it caught me, because here's Elon trying to not smooth it over, but just laying it out. Like, they would love to be able to do the right thing for everyone. But in this case, it looks like there's a financial situation here where they can't exactly do it. So I'm not saying that they should do it or they shouldn't do it, whatever. I just want to point out that a tweet that some people might have missed, because Elon did respond to portions of this. There's a couple others in there. I'll put a link to the thread so you guys can follow along a little bit. So, but anyway, so that's that. Ian, please chime in on this.
Well, yeah, no, I think Eric summarized a lot of the very same sentiments I had, and in the very same way, I've been radio silent on the thing all week, just trying to absorb it all, because I think there are a lot of very valid viewpoints, very valid opinion. Certainly Mark and Michael have done a lot of work sort of shedding light on the negative side of it, and that's appreciated. We got to look at this. We can't just say, oh, it's all great, it's all great, it's all great. It's not always all great.
No.
Not everybody agrees with how Tesla's handling this. And I got to say, yeah, the fact that the story has changed so much in the last week has been no fun for anyone. I tend to view things very much in the macro. And the way I'm seeing this is kind of plays into what Elon had just said. And that is, over time, the goal of this company is to get EVs into as many hands as possible. And it can sometimes be a bit of a messy road. And the way I see it is, I'm looking, what did people get when they spent whatever it was, $100,000 on a Roadster, versus what did you get for, the initial most expensive version of the S, then the X, finally the 3. I mean, I'm a perfect case. Compared to what I could buy my car for today, I overpaid to the tune of about $12,000. I mean, considering this is 4 times the amount of money I've ever spent on a car, that is a giant hole in my budget.
Yep.
Now, I'm extraordinarily fortunate in that I had 2 things play in my favor. I was one of the very few people who got the full $8,000 EV credit for the performance car in Quebec before they cut that off. So right there, I got an extra $5,000 discount. And I did get free supercharging, which you won't get today, which is, in credit value, another $5,000. So I feel like, very fortunate that I was okay. But for somebody else necessarily who didn't get those benefits or credits, whatever, they'd be feeling the pain. Conversely, I know the prices are going to continue to go down. So you have the prices of the cars being dropped. Now they're messing around with the prices of the autopilot and everything else. It's a lot for us to absorb in a short period of time. But the way I look at it, you know what? There's a lot of people who paid a hell of a lot more money for bigger, fancier cars with more profit in order for me to get mine at the price that I did. And I'm now sort of paying it forward by buying the most expensive Model 3 and paying top dollar when it first came out. I'm clearing the way, I'd hope, for people who are buying the $35,000 or $37,000 version of the car, and so on and so on. I mean, you could say, well, that's nice. You're out there paying charity for people to do these things. No, no matter what, the minute I pressed go on that car, I felt it was worth every single dollar I was paying for it. And if you ask me that question today, it is bloody well worth every single cent I pay. And I have to write that check every month. Believe me, I am fully aware of what it costs. Not for a second do I regret it. So in the moment, if you're happy for what you're getting for your money, if it's cheaper next week or next year, that's kind of a fact of life. I mean, my television set I paid $4,000 for 6 years ago, you could now reproduce for $1,200. Yeah. That's an extreme case, and it's certainly not the same value. We're more used to it with consumer electronics. I think we have a harder time swallowing it with cars. But again, these are very advanced pieces of technology that are going to escalate very rapidly in terms of their capabilities while the price drops. It's just where we are in history. We sort of have to make peace with that. And again, I'm not saying that Tesla couldn't do better on this or maybe continue to look at it and do right by people. I'm sure maybe there's ways we can improve on it. But overall, that's my feel of the whole situation. It's the bigger picture. Yeah, cars are going to get better and they're going to get cheaper. If you jump in now, that's kind of where you are in history. So make your decision wisely. If this is where you want to be, if you feel you're getting the value, make peace with it. This is what it is. And I think nothing else, know that you're contributing, like you're helping advance the cause here.
No, you're spot on there. And I think what's and I thought of this now while you were talking, is it's so loud, the noise now, because there's so many owners or potential owners with the Model 3 community growing so quickly in a very short amount of time. I mean, if you look at, the history of the company from the initial Roadster to the Model S and the X, that was a gradual, slow growth. And there were missteps on the way, but they were not large enough of a footprint of a company to really have that much forethought on people's mind. I mean, yeah, there was news coverage because Elon is very famous and the company started getting its grounding. But now we're seeing it. Now we're seeing what that exponential growth is turning into. We're seeing how many people are out there going, where is the resolution for this? We were seeing service issues before deliveries. We're now seeing all of a sudden the EAP, AP, FSD conversation. These are people in great numbers are all raising their voice for some side of this conversation, and no one's wrong. That's the difficult thing in all of this, that no one is wrong. If you feel like you've been slighted, you're right. If you feel like Ian does, which is you were a benefactor early on, you've contributed to the success of the company, you've helped build where we are today with the Model 3 and the whole entire fleet, then you're right too. There is no wrong answer for this, but the problem is, and to Elon's point for his tweet, There is no one way to fix all this. There's no Band-Aid solution. There is no single tweet he can send that's going to make it all go away. It's not going to, all of a sudden just wash your hands clean and think, hey, we're fine. You're going to still have people who might have a bitter taste in their mouth, and that's okay. I'm someone who's sort of neutral on this, saying, you know what? Yeah, I probably could have saved money if I bought my car 6 months later, but I have certain benefits now that I'm grandfathered in I wouldn't have otherwise had. So it is a difficult decision. It is tough to say, how do we move forward and sort of make everyone whole? You can't do it. And the cost to do so is more than just financial. But at this point now, if people just had clarity understanding what they're going to do, and I think making FSD as, Trevor pointed out, if you can make it as an add-on option where the cost is respectably lower than what you've paid otherwise, that's a compromise of sorts. Even if you don't want to pay it, you don't want to pay it. But I have certain features of full self-driving as an EAP owner that people are not going to have now, and they're going to try to make that decision. Well, I want my car to auto park. I want my car to do summon, the advanced summon. Well, if you want to have some of those features, you have to really pay to have the $8,000 that you want. So it's a tough decision either way. It is a very passionate issue, and I'm glad people are having the conversation. But we're here just discussing as owners. And we're telling you it's not even easy for us to support what Tesla's doing to know what the right answer is.
All very good, valid points. I have to go back on what Ian was saying, and this is something that I took to heart before I bought my car. Having followed Tesla and seeing all the changes that they made, is to absolutely make peace with what you bought. I'm in the computer industry. Prices change all the time. They're always being pushed down all the time. And I always saw the car as, this is different. This isn't a car. This is a computer. So I better be ready for, rapid changes. And I always told myself, look, I'm going to buy this car, and once I'm done buying this car, I'm never going back and looking at the prices and the changes on the Model X page, because I'll either be happy or I'll be disappointed, and I don't care. I'm just going to enjoy the car. That's just the approach that I took. Now, just for fun, I broke my cardinal rule here. I actually logged in.
Of course you
to
did.
The Tesla. I just went into the Tesla site and I configured a Model X exactly the way I did. And guess what? It cost me $10,000 more than I bought. Now, it's the 100 kilowatt hour battery pack. I have the 75. Okay, but in all honesty, for me to get the 100 kilowatt hour battery pack when I bought my car, it was $20,000 more. Mm-hmm. So for me, it's kind of a wash at this point. I do believe that, and Tesla is still, and I don't want to make excuses, and I don't want to defend them in any shape, way, or form, because they are a company after all, and they can make their own damn decisions. Mm-hmm. But this constant pricing changes has got to stop. They have to settle down somehow, because, it kind of reminds me back, if you ever watch you guys remember watching the old documentary, Revenge of the Electric Car.
Yes,
of course.
Right, by Chris Payne. Great movie. If you guys haven't seen it, please do yourself a favor and watch it. And there's there's a really poignant scene in there when Elon has to talk to the people that are sitting in the Menlo Park first Tesla store. These were all reservation holders for their very first Roadster, and he had to go back and basically chew on glass, as he likes to call it, and tell them, look, we have to raise prices. It is what it is. And the early adopters were pissed. But they jumped in. And here we are, 7, 8, 9, 10 years later, and they're kind of doing the same thing again, but in a slightly different manner. And personally, I think Tesla, in some ways, they still have some growing up to do in a variety of different areas. Yes, they make great cars. We love them to death, but you don't always have to agree with the way the company operates. And in this case, this is an extreme example of them not thinking things through. I understand their point on reducing the prices on the car on average 5 to 6%, because if you're going to get rid of your stores, that's larger overhead. You're going to go to online sales. I get that. But to just discount the cars unilaterally 5 or 6%, man, I would be mad about that. I don't care which way you look at it. That is me. And like I said, I have made peace with how I bought my car and stuff. But if it happened overnight like that, I understand. People would be mad about that. Did it have to be 5 or 6% overnight? Maybe they could have spread it out over 6 or 7 or 8 or 12 months or something like that. I think it would have lessened the pain a little bit. So I don't know. It's.
I mean, we've talked in the show a number of times that change is inevitable with Tesla. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's obviously not as good. But our own chorus has said a number of times, if you know you want something, get it, because tomorrow you never know. So it is par for the course in terms of what we've been preaching in the show for so long. So for me, and this is I hope this doesn't sound cold, but it is very I think it'd be wrong of us to sit here and sort of cast doubt on what they've been doing when we've been saying the whole time this is what they're known for doing. You know, I'm with you on they need to sort of be more judicious. And listen, we're not in those boardrooms, we're not in those meetings, we don't know what the conversations are surrounding all of this stuff. I mean, for all we know, they're already having meeting after meeting after meeting for the next thing for them. I mean, look, there hasn't even been an invite for the Model Y going out yet. You know, for all we know, they may be doing some PR meetings and trying to figure out, well, yeah, this is going to, we had the V3 launch, we're going to have the Model Y now, so there's some things to get people psyched up and really excited again, but there's still that poor aftertaste of like, wow, we had this gum that actually tastes like soap. So,
Good segue.
You're welcome. So I do believe wholeheartedly that they're going to find a way to figure this out eventually. And I also think that, to your point, Trevor, they do need to sort of pump the brakes a bit on how they're handling their pricing. Because it is one of those people, you know, you're going to get to a point where someone's going to go, listen, I'm very tempted to buy this car, but I don't want to buy it today. And then 2 days from now, the car drops $2,000, and then I can't get $2,000 back plus taxes, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, it would be nice if there was some kind of a heads up, like, hey, this is what our plan is. I mean, look, we knew the master plan so far early on, and that master plan came to fruition. Then all of a sudden, one day there's going to be an SUV. The Model X is going to be out there. We're going to sort of delay the passenger car for a bit. We're going to have this car in between because you know what? We want to do it. We're going to have now a pickup truck. Like they're at least advancing some ideas that are not part of the original master plan. And then, of course, the second iteration of their master plan. And those things are sort of coming up because, like, you know what? We're going to try this. We're going to do that. And I think in them experimenting in this way, they're going to have missteps and miscalculations. But it's all of them growing. They're still a fledgling company. They're not as stellar as General Motors. But, of course, General Motors today had, I think, their last Chevy Cruze assembled in North America. That plant is shut down as of now. And so we're seeing left and right changes. Ford is going to essentially stop producing passenger cars except for the Mustang. Change is happening. And we just had news of NIO that they're going to basically now close up shop because they just can't get their factories going. Yep. So there's a lot of change happening around it. It's not just with Tesla. It's just that because of how broad a base Tesla covers, anything they do that is in any way seen as a misstep is just ballooned into this huge, big problem. And you have enough owners also raising the stink on social media that chorus just keeps going and growing and growing and growing to the point where now it's its own entity. And then we're sort of left to figure out, okay, now Tesla, what are you going to do about this? Look what this mess you created. And people are just going to go, all right, well, and then you have people like us who are like, hey, we're here to answer questions, but we don't know what to tell you. That's a long-winded answer, but I mean, it's just, this is a very complicated thing, and there is no simple way to solve this.
At least they're consistent and not behaving like other companies.
They're consistent in not being consistent? Is that what you're saying, Trevor?
Yeah, exactly. It's time. We're going to answer some viewer and listener questions. Thank you for everybody who chimed in using our new Google Forms thing. I think it's going to work out a little bit easier for us instead of just reading tweets as we go. So thanks for doing that. Just want to say we got a lot of questions, but a lot of the stuff that people had asked is stuff that we kind of already talked about during the podcast. So we're going to just go through and answer some of the other ones that don't have any relevance to what we already talked about.
Funny how that works.
Yeah, exactly. So I want you to take this one here. Pedro Pereira asks, how does Tesla use the full potentially of V3 and if X can take advantage of it in an S and X refresh. Sorry I mangled that there, Pedro, but we get
Full
the gist of
potential.
it. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, the question is a valid one. What's going to happen? Obviously, Model 3 is going to charge a lot quicker with V3, but what happens to S and X? Well, as I understand it right now, I think I'm correct in saying that they're going to up the charge limit on the S and the X to 145 kilowatts. And that goes right back to the earliest Model 60 even, built in 2012. So all Model S and Model X currently on the roads will get a fairly decent boost, something in the order of around 20%. So that's going to help, I think. And not only that, I think they're going to increase probably over a larger curve than the 3, because the 3, if you look at some of the graphs that we displayed earlier in the show, there's a huge improvement from 0 to 30, and then it kind of tapers a little and it starts to fall more in line with V3. Hopefully what will happen with the S and the X, that's a guess on my part, is that they'll get a bigger boost over a larger part of the curve. So the total time reduction potentially for S and X might still be pretty substantial on V3. And of course, we've just heard that even V2 chargers are going to get unlocked, hopefully to go up to 145 kilowatt advantage. The other thing too, don't forget, is that as Elon mentioned, there's no longer going to be any sharing between stalls. So even if you're driving an S or an X, this business of having the power cut in half when somebody plugs in next to you, that's all disappearing. You're going to get full jam all the time in every single stall. So that in and of itself is a huge advantage. It will vastly speed up the times, to get people in and out of the chargers quicker. So overall, I think there's still going to be a lot of advantages for S and X owners when they get into the V3 chargers. And then, as Pedro points out later in the question, what happens during the S and the X refresh? Well, we all sort of have money on that somehow the 2170 cell or something like its chemistry is going to get in there, and then they'll go full V3 charging speed would be my sort of best guess.
Yeah, you can't lay this groundwork and ignore it later on for cars, for sure.
I do want to add one quick thing here. So earlier today, I tweeted out Tom Randall. I retweeted the thread he put up there from this morning on March 7th, and it's a great thread. I'm actually going to read part of it really quickly, just because I think it's a follow up to what Ian was just saying, especially as it relates to Model S and X owners. So this is quoting Tom. Tesla's supercharger upgrade is a pretty big deal. Once again, charging time has been cut in half. The 250 kilowatt charge rate isn't the industry fastest. Other networks are being deployed capable of 350 kilowatt max, but there's a key difference. The difference is that Tesla already has a fleet of cars on the road that can actually handle 250 kilowatt charging. Most EVs today top out at 50 kilowatts, and most cars under development for the next few years max out at around 100 to 150 kilowatt. Only the Porsche Taycan will be capable of 350 kilowatt. Another breakthrough for Tesla is navigation-based thermal management for the battery, which Raj talked about at the outset of the show. When a driver is headed to a supercharger, the battery will preheat on approaches. Tesla says this improves charge time by 25%. If accurate, that's an extremely low-cost charging innovation. Teslas will get the battery preconditioning feature through an over-the-air software update as a 25% charge time improvement with no new hardware or utility upgrades required. This feature will be difficult for competitors to emulate because Tesla runs its own navigation software and its own charging network and integrates the two in-house. So there's more stuff in here, but the crux of it is that we're seeing that even with the S and X that what we have, they're still capable of doing a lot more than some other cars in the market today. So there's going to be some advantages for them, but over time we'll see an improvement in the network as a whole.
Awesome. I'll put a link to Tom Randall's thing so that people can
that was a good thread.
read it. Yeah,
It was really great.
All right, another question comes from our good friend and follower, Jason Pace. So this one's directed at Ian for sure. He says, did he ever think that our performance Model 3s would be able to take on and beat a 2019 Porsche 911 GT2 RS in a drag race? That was one of the few cars that have ever saddled up beside me. I would have given the thumbs up and waved to him on a and respectively drove behind him.
Yeah, I've driven a couple and launched a few 911 turbos. Let me tell you, that is not a car I would take on in my performance Model 3 either. My jaw dropped when I saw that video. I was like, there's no way this is going to happen. And I think it was Nico Rosberg who'd put that out. And I got to give Yeah, I got to give the kid credit. He puts on a hell of a show. His YouTube channel is actually a lot of fun to watch, them just goofing around. Of course, what a scene. Everybody's like, I guess that's your new life goal, right? Is to like race your performance Model 3 down the K or whatever the thing was there in Monaco. It's like, wow, yeah, it was such a beautifully shot video. But yes, I did not for a second expect that this car would take it. Maybe for a few feet off the line, pretty much what Nico called, but no way did I think it would take it all the way up to 60 miles an hour. So yeah, I was shocked and impressed. And it's gonna get faster too.
Yeah, good. All right, next question is Eric. Why don't you take this one from Andrew Goodlid? We lost his audio.
Did we?
All right, there.
There we go.
There we go. Do you think Tesla will unlock higher charging speeds on CCS-enabled Model 3s in Europe? There's a few networks with 175 kilowatt chargers. Great to see some RHD VINs showing up 16 so far. Looking forward to them finally getting to the UK.
Excellent.
Nailed it! That's how you do a show.
The Brits are probably all cringing, but we're impressed. I mean, I got to say, from my end, it sounded great.
You're quite welcome.
The answer is, that is a very good question. We really don't know. Look, we're still waiting for the bloody Chatamo adapter support on the Model 3. This could be a competitive advantage to Tesla, at least in short term. We'll have to wait to see. There could be some communication protocols involved with this that are just not found on the others. We really don't know. Yeah, it would make sense for them to open it up to everybody, but who knows at this point. So, very good question. We will keep an eye on this. Obviously, once the cars get delivered to Europe and this Supercharging V3 beta test period and the software is kind of over and they start deploying it, maybe we'll see something like that. But it would surprise me that it would require some kind of software update to actually unlock it for third-party people. So we will have to wait and see on that one. Let's see here. I'll answer this one here from Jason Klatt. He says, any details on the refunds yet? I pulled the trigger on autopilot early when it was $5,300 Canadian, so hoping for a refund for the difference before the next credit card statement shows up. Well, you and me both, buddy. So I spoke to Tesla about this basically for my situation because I am due a refund. They said that they were going to, once the dust settled on getting all the changes on the back end done, so that all the pricing was going to be in place for everybody. And it looks like largely, I've been getting a lot of tweets today that that's actually done for people, that they were going to pull a report a little later this week and look at all the affected people and start issuing refunds. So give it a little bit of grain of salt. Tesla is a little overwhelmed with a lot of the orders and the autopilot situation. So I would suspect it'll probably happen probably early next week. So you'll be looking for that. As soon as I get, I look at my credit card statement. So as soon as I see the refund showed up, I'll tweet it out so that people know that these things have actually started. Good question. Thank you very much for that one. All right, I'll take the last one here tonight. David Kissinger. Kissinger? Sorry if I mangled your name, buddy.
Kinzinger.
Kissinger. Thank you very much. He asks, if you just ordered FSD option today, $2,600 Canadian, and have autopilot, will you then receive the V3 CPU when available for free? My X was purchased in January 1st, 2018 with autopilot, same as yours, I believe. So the answer is, I do believe with about 90% certainty that yes, the computer will be as part of the upgrade. Now, Elon has made many tweets and talks, of course, on the financial calls or the earnings calls that this new computer, in order to get to their end game, which is full self-driving, the cars will need an upgraded computer. He said many times that the cost of full self-driving includes the upgrade to the computer. So I'm being led to believe that that's exactly what will happen. Imagine, look, we just went through this whole kerfuffle this week about full self-driving and the pricing. The last thing you want to hear when you've purchased full self-driving and then they come around and you want this computer upgrade because, look, the feature's available, and Tesla says, oh, by the way, you owe us another $2,000 or $3,000. Mm-hmm. That is not going to happen, my friends. So I'm going to put my neck out there and say, yes, absolutely, it includes the price of the upgraded computer. It has to. I'm sorry. They cannot have this kind of shenanigans again. And again, I'm just going back on evidence of what Elon has said in the past, that the upgrades are included for that type of thing. So if you purchased FSD in the past or you're purchasing it now, it includes the price of the computer. Now, I know some people are probably going to go to the comments and ask right away, what about cars existing today? Do they already have the computer? We have no indication that cars that are in production right now or going into production have these computers in there. Yes, there have been some reports of cars showing up on Teslafy indicating what looks to be the Hardware 3 computer, but we don't have any physical evidence of that. We do know that Tesla or Elon was saying previously on another financial call that they were doing the final validation of the production lines and stuff for this computer, and they were hoping to have it in place by the second quarter of this. So I think it's imminent, but again, we don't have any evidence of cars that actually have the computer yet. Elon has said that the computer swap takes about 30 minutes to do, and I would say that that's about accurate. I did pull my dash apart the other day to do some wrapping on there, and I saw the autopilot computer, and I would be able to do it in 30 minutes. It's not that big of a deal. So I think that something like that is something that mobile service could actually do. So I know some people are probably going to ask that question. Do you need to take your car in? I don't think so. I think mobile service can do it. And, obviously with the change out, there's going to be some recalibration. So don't expect autopilot to be fully functional or full self-driving as soon as the computer swaps. So I hope that answers your question. Oh, my gosh. So much to talk about, guys, tonight. Any closing thoughts before we kick out? This one's going to be a little longer one.
Trev, can I ask her one more real quickly? Because I just spotted one I thought was interesting.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Aaron wrote in to ask, have you ever heard of anyone experiencing sudden braking with autopilot engaged due to winter salt, dust, grime buildup on the sensors? And my answer to that was no. I mean, I've had an incredible amount of crud baked onto my car at many points throughout the winter, and I found that the system is generally pretty good at deciding at what point to shut down. I've never actually had that cause a malfunction. At any point where it's not going to work, it basically says, sorry, autopilot function is not available, whatever, due to, weather conditions or what have you. So
I agree with you. I have not had a case of sudden braking for quite some time yet. Autopilot kind of goes out sometimes. It says bad weather, whatever, it's unavailable. I have my sensors freaking out the other day when I was in the coffee line. It was thinking that was right at the but I'm just attributing that to just dirt on the sensors. So it might have been just a fluke on his part, but I don't know. I've seen what looks like to be a lot of the reports of the sudden braking hasn't really popped up its head very much recently. So I don't know if it's a software thing that they finally got around to fixing. We know it was a problem there for a while, but I've submitted my share of bug reports about that. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, Aaron, write back to us on Twitter or on the forum or somewhere. Just reach out and give us a little bit more detail. I'd like to hear exactly what the situation was.
Please do. All right, boys, we got to call it a night. Where can people find you, Eric, on the internet if they want to have a chat with you?
You guys can find me on Twitter at the handle ECFix. That is ECFIX.
Excellent. Ian, where can people find you?
On Twitter, at Ian Pavelko. You can also find me at Model 3 Owners Club. The handle is Mad Hungarian. And if you are interested in some fine Tesla wear, you can also, here we go, I'm just demonstrating right here, the
mass adoption t-shirt,
yes.
Baby.
Weapons of Mass Adoption I'm wearing this evening, and you can find all of the Evolve wear at Teespring, spring.com, all one word. Just look up Mad Hungarian Evolve wear, and you will find that. Trevor, if you'll be so kind. So a little link at the bottom of the show there.
Always in the podcast description for you.
There you go.
Good man. Thank you very much. Well, as usual, you can find me on Twitter. My handle is Model3Owners. And please check out the Model 3 Owners Club forum. It's free for everybody. We have a whole section in there ready for Model Y. So you can find that at model3ownersclub.com. And lastly, I want to say a big thank you to all of our sponsors. That's Fine Lab, Duliban Insurance, and the great guys at Evanex who make great, fantastic Tesla accessories. And with that, we will leave you for tonight, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you later.
Yeah, 2 weeks from now.
Bye.